Good morning, everyone. My presentation will focus on master's thesis in our work study master programs in Belgium, the challenges that were related to them, and how we try to overcome them. To begin, some context. In French-speaking Belgium, work study master's programs are quite new. It was legally made possible only recently, with the legal and institutional frameworks developing over the past few years. The objective was, among others, to respond to labor market needs in specific sectors. So my university, UC Louvain, one of the leading universities of the French-speaking part of Belgium, just launched three work study programs. One is a master's in strategic communication, one is a master's in management science with a specialization in digital transformation, and the last one is a master's in accounting and tax expertise. So my co-authors of this research and presentation are the professors responsible of these programs. Each of these programs include a significant component of workplace learning. At least 40% of the students' time is spent in a company, guided by missions and objectives, and these are paid positions because internship, for example, in Belgium are mostly not paid. So the master's thesis is designed to be directly related to the experience within the company with an idea of having a thesis related to a company's project. But with these new formats came new challenges. Most of the first students that were supposed to graduate didn't succeed because they failed at their master's thesis. They were not responding to the academic quality standards that were expected for these assignments. So we established a root cause for the quality issues to provide relevant data to explore potential actions on thesis format and support mechanism in work study master's programs, and to identify barriers and opportunities to align thesis with the expectation and needs of three key stakeholders, which are the students, the companies, and of course, academic institutions. So to capture these dynamics, we used a mixed method approach. We conducted documentary analysis of regulatory and institutional documents. We organized interview and focus groups with supervisors, students, and company tutors, and we ran an online survey. So we use the inclusive definition of work integrated learning by Zegward et al. So we see the master's thesis in work study program as a process on campus and in workplace settings that includes pre-work integrated learning and post-work integrated learning aspects. So it involves three parties, the university, the student, and the company, and we understand the word employability as a challenge and change how work is conducted in a profession and in working life in general. That's Björk's definition in an article. So it means that employability for us is also about critical thinking, the work process. So from this perspective, the master's thesis can become a real process in itself, and it can mobilize academic skills in the service of professional issues. So this is the idea, but in practice, there are some conflicts of perspectives. Academic supervisors focus on rigor, theoretical framing, and critical distance, but business stakeholders, on the other side, they want to something more concrete, useful, and time efficient. So these differences raise critical challenges. How can a master thesis have both academic excellence and business relevance while at the same time developing the key professionally adapted skills for students? And at the end, how is it possible to resolve the epistemological tensions that can appear in some fields between professional and scholars' perspectives? So What did we find with these reports? Supervisors see the thesis as essential for validating scientific and critical skills. So for them, the thesis is not just an assignment. It's the symbolic moment where the student demonstrates the capacity to conduct research. But tensions appear. Some supervisors prefer giving students autonomy, while others prefer structured guidance. Supervisors themselves also want autonomy in how they supervise, which creates inconsistency between students. So they worry about workload, especially when supervising theses that involve complex company relationships. And a crucial point for them is that the quality of the thesis often depends on the involvement of the company. So if the organization is engaged and provide access to data, the thesis is stronger. If not, the academic supervisor is left compensating or adapting. So for businesses, they are not opposed to academic work. They have a positive opinion on it. Sometimes they read scientific sources during their work. They think that using science can reinforce the credibility of the results and facilitates decision making or innovation. So they can imagine that the master thesis can be useful to the organization, but the value thesis as practical problem-solving tools. The skills that were expected to be obtained from the work study programs were mostly business-oriented and not directly related to the let's call it scientific approach. But some can be obtained through the thesis process, such as autonomy, project management, and depending on the subject, knowledge related to the professional environment. Among the obstacles identified for developing a useful thesis to the organization, the respondent cited the lack of alignment between thesis topics and the concrete needs of organization, but also confidentiality issues which can limit access to data. And the thesis sometimes seen as too theoretical and not easily adaptable to field needs. The tutors generally perceive the thesis positively and are willing to engage in the process, but they request more clarity, earlier and clearer integration, and a more active collaboration with the university. And support of the company tutor is seen as essential to ensuring the relevance of a thesis, but this commitment often represents a significant workload for tutors, particularly in terms of time and involvement required. So for the students' perspective, they expressed mixed feelings. Some see the thesis as useful for their career, others as an extra burden. And they struggle with the dual expectation of meeting at the same time academic standards while also addressing company needs. So they face organizational difficulties, particularly with time management, since they combine coursework, company tasks, and thesis writing. They call for clearer communication, more coherent information, and support tools. Peer exchanges were also mentioned as helpful in navigating the process. So after identifying the main barriers, we started implementing several actions across three strategic areas. So first, we introduced more flexibility in thesis format and processes. Instead of imposing a single project-based model, each program can now adapt the thesis according to the context. So also calendars and milestones are being redesigned to match the dual rhythm of studies and work, and we are exploring ways to assess the process rather than just the final document. Second, we worked on student support. So new methodological seminars have been piloted in the accounting and management programs, focusing on understanding research logic. reading and evaluating existing theses, and also preparing earlier for the process. We also strengthen the cooperation with existing university services to create adapted sessions for work-study students. And finally, we improved communication among stakeholders. A chapter on the thesis has been added to the company tutor's guide. A concise vademecum has been developed for supervisors, and discussions are ongoing to institutionalize tripartite meetings between students, companies, and academic staff. So these initiatives aim to build shared understanding, clarify expectation, and reduce the epistemic gap between academia and business practices. Overall, these actions mark a shift from problem identification to an ongoing process of pedagogical design and evaluation, turning the master's thesis into a learning ecosystem that evolves through feedback from all stakeholders. So, in conclusion, master's thesis in work-study program have the potential to be valuable work integrate learning experiences that address needs from all stakeholders, but it's necessary to have a careful design and implementation. So, for us, it seems essential to foster early and continuous collaboration between stakeholders. All parties should have a shared understanding of the thesis objective, constraints, and deliverables, and businesses should be provided with clearer guidelines on what constitutes an academically rigorous and how they can contribute to thesis and how they can benefit from them. So, to reduce the epistemological divide between academic and business perspective, we can offer more flexible thesis format, as we said, or in the other way, maybe we can think of other ways of doing it, such as develop a specifically adapted framework related to the field or the specialization. So one of the key elements stay the communication element. Communication seems to be a key element here because the communication has to be coherent and multidirectional and regular. Thank you for your attention.